Welcome to Solutions from the Yard, a candid discussion about life behind bars and its effect on society. We'll discuss reintegration or re-entry back into the community post-incarceration. Your host for this episode is Dietrich Trent.
Welcome to Solutions from the Yard. I'm today's host, Dietrich Trent. I have a few things I want to talk about, and one mainly is the 13th Amendment. This past midterm election, this was on the ballot on a lot of states. I don't know if the audience know that we're talking about slavery, people. And slavery may sound like an issue of the past, but it was a topic on the ballot in 5 different states, right? And from Alabama, Tennessee, Vermont, Oregon, and Louisiana. And the thing about this is, and a lot of people don't understand that the majority of the United States, slavery still exists when it comes to the 13th Amendment, right? And what makes this illegally is because we are not equipped in knowing what exists inside these laws that in these legislations and some of these bylaws and some of these exceptions that's within in the Constitution that's going to affect not only a criminal, but it affects the whole United States of America as the citizens of the United States of America, because anyone could be placed in handcuffs at any given time. But Lord knows we not just what we're promoting, but you are subject to this. So this is something more of not a prison issue, it's more of a human rights issue, because it's 2022 and we're talking about slavery. And today I'm joined by 2 of my hosts, Michael Dickinson-Ill and brother Charles Hopkins. How you doing?
I'm doing great, bro. Thanks for having me.
I'm doing great too. Thanks for having me.
I mean, y'all always here with me. I ain't talking about thanks for having me. We always here together. But anyway, I know you 2 brothers did a long extensive time in prison, right? And you both know how the prison labor go when it comes to working and trying to provide for yourself and just trying to make a dollar to survive. Mm-hmm. And we could talk numbers all day because we know how much we was getting paid for certain jobs and what was the high job, what was the lower job. But all the time, but this was all in the form of a conviction that allowed them to still keep slavery going. Now, we know in prison, brothers and sisters go in there, don't have a formal mean of family out here, so they are subject to participate into some of these labor jobs that's being offered inside these industrial prisons systems. So I want to talk to you. What was your experience inside a prison in the workforce, brother Dickinson-Ill?
Well, my experience, I always tried to maintain a job in prison, not mainly because only the finance, but to keep my mind in the state where as though I'm always working and not to get lazy, because a lot of homies and other people in prison, they sleep all the way to lunchtime. I like to get up and get my workout on, and after I work out, I always had I had a job that was scheduled after my workout, so I always try to maintain a form of a job, not like I said just for the money, but to keep myself disciplined, because I know I had a release date, and I knew that I was going to get out, and I knew that I was going to need some form of discipline in that area. When it came to prison pay, now that was a struggle in its own, because depends on what type of institution you was in, what type of job you got. You can be getting like a minimum wage pay of like around $5 a month, but you can sometimes earn up to at least $80 to $90 a month. You know, they had pay grades like they went all the way up to 29 cents an hour. You know, and if you was working in like one of the industries in the federal system, you know, you can make a little more. You might be getting like, it depends on the industry that you was in. You'd be getting, you know, maybe $120 a month, up to around 300 or something in that area. But that was like if you was privileged, and it was a long waiting list to even get those type of jobs, because most time those type of jobs was mostly given to the guys that had real high, you know, like restitution fees, you know, the court fees and stuff like that. So they gave them first dibs to the jobs that paid the most, because they had the most money to pay back to the government. So they made sure that they got, you know, those jobs first, you know. And then if you were just a regular Joe Schmo, you know, you had to, you know, be in the crab in the barrel and get whatever job you know, can get to sustain you or serve its purpose.
Yes, I'm glad you spoke on about the restitution and about that, because it was a law back in the day. It was a law back in the day. It was called the restitution program, where they was selling, putting people. They was coming around, like if you owe debt, and put you and have you doing labor for cheap jobs for these prison industries with these regular citizens that had debt, and they was using them, tricking them into doing labor for these corporations. I'm gonna get into that, but I'm glad. Speaking of now, I want to talk to you, brother. I was talking. How was your experience dealing with the prison labor?
You know, this is a good subject matter, because I recall, like, when I first got in industry, I was doing a lot of litigating. So I was real litigious, and the institution kind of got attitude with me. So as a form of punishment and tried to control me, they put me in the prison industry, and it used to be called the state use industry. And now it's called the Maryland Correctional Enterprise. But the state use industry is an industry that primarily uses prison labor to produce state material. The desks that they have in the Annapolis, the chairs and the furniture for University of Maryland dormitories, and the beds that was for new prisons. And so I was in, they asked me which job I wanted to get in. And so being defined, I said, I don't care. So they put me in the shop called Metal One. And Metal One was like the first shop that was used to prefab the stuff for the beds that they was building for a new prison. And what they had did, they took the machinery that they had was World War I and World War II machinery that they had refab. So in terms of, so it could operate, but you had like little pieces of metal, 4 inches by 4 inches, and that you push through a little thing and you hit a die and it punch a hole in it, and that later on will be used to anchor the bunks. So my experience in industry, this was the one shop I was working. My experience in industry, it was labor. The pay was good in response to you working a job that's you get more money than everybody else in the institution. You get more money than the people working in the kitchen. You get more money than the people working sanitation. You get more money than the people working in the library. But in terms of the amount of money that you just making for the industry, you're only getting pittance. You might be getting, like we might, on an average, we might make 90 cents a day. And then when they say bonus, the bonus is based on the amount of productivity you put out. So that's the incentive to put out a lot of productivity, because you might get 90 cents a day, but the bonus might be $2 a day. But the productivity you put out for that month. In order to get $2 a day, you put out enough material to get the corporation maybe $50 million that month. Right? So that was the first job I had. The second job I had, and this was really crazy, was I worked in the tag shop. And they had prefab the machinery to be able to press tags. So my experience in prison, it's always been when I was in industry. I've always felt like, and I was being exploited because of the amount of money we were making for the corporation. But at the same token, I knew a lot of guys that was in the industry. They had an attitude of indifference because you're making more money than the general population.
And I'm glad you said that, but I'm gonna get back to what the restitution. It was Mississippi, so Mississippi has a restitution program where it sends its people to work off debts owed by the state by acting as a temp agency for a number of industries. So this is something that this not only they was doing this to actually walking citizens, and that's not just in prison. So people wake up. Wake up. So I want to speak, and you were speaking on about the labor. So I want to touch on so the audience can know the different type of labors that's inside the prison when it comes to, because you were saying about how your job in the industry was getting paid more than the kitchen and these such in these jobs. And I know by being in prison, the working in Unico, you had to be quote unquote a good, I hate to say this, but a good inmate, right? Good S, right? So today there are three main kinds of prison labors: in-house work, the production of goods for sale, the work release program. However, similar forms of exploitation can also be found in the rehabilitation programs and the immigration centers as well, right? Now, the in-house workers, we know what the in-house workers are, right? So the in-house workers ain't nobody, but they're just working around the facilities, and you doing the food service, you do cleaning, laundry, groundkeeping, maintenance, and custodial work. Them are the in-house that's keeping the prison up, keeping the house up.
Yeah.
We keeping the house up, right? Okay, but we know, and this is not to talk against anybody, because I held some of these jobs as well. So I ain't talking down on no one when we saying this, because a lot of us, we speaking as an experience coming from over these mics. But the prison industry for productions of good sales. So this is when you got them working real agriculture labor. You got them working in farms and doing things of people, and they ain't getting nothing for this.
That's right.
And you were saying that the job that you was doing as well was doing for the beds and tags. These are well-paid jobs in society. But I want to speak on this. Explain to me, how is it still allowed for the United States of America to still allow this to be exploited through the 13th Amendment? Brother Dickinson, they'll talk to me.
When you read the 13th Amendment, it says, involuntary slavery was abolished, except if you were duly convicted of a crime.
Come on,
teach them.
And that's some of the small print a lot of people don't pay no attention to, because the first thing you hear is, involuntary slavery has been abolished. But if you do your history on slavery, you had what was called involuntary slavery, and you had what was called indentured servitude. Now, involuntary slavery dealt with us, the so-called black man and black woman. Whereas though, you can be a slave, and your children were slaves, and so forth and so forth, for generation to generation. Now, when you had indentured servitude, now indentured servitude applied for any citizen, because if you broke any of the laws of that town that you was a part of, you could get sentenced to the plantation for a certain amount of time to do indentured servitude. So now when the 13th Amendment was ratified and came out in 1865, involuntary slavery was abolished, because, we was freed off the plantations. I didn't have to be a slave no more. My children didn't have to be slaves. But when it says, except if you were duly convicted of a crime, now that still applies to indentured servitude. That's what that applies to. Now, in the article, it says that this applied to all citizens. You see what I'm saying? So therefore, when anybody of any race got duly convicted of a crime, right, you had to return back to the plantations, because at one point in time, they didn't have no prison system. They didn't have it. So the way they punished you was putting you back on the plantation. And, they had created all types of laws during that time when we was first free, because a lot of us didn't know how to read. We didn't know the law. So they came up with vagrancy laws, loitering laws. So if you were seen just walking around in the town and you standing around too long, they say, hey, boy, what you doing standing there? Oh, I was trying to find a hardware store, sir. And then the next thing you know, when you was standing too long, you was loitering. And then they'll lock you up, convict you, and you get put back on the plantation for a certain amount of time and then get released. So during this time, we didn't know the law. We didn't even know how to read. So we was just falling victim to all these snares and tricks that they was playing. So once they started what was called the U.S. prison system, and see, once a lot of the Europeans started coming to prison in the United States, and they was dismantling the 13th Amendment and said, hey, y'all got us in here breaking rocks, making license plates, doing all these different things, and we not getting paid. Involuntary slavery is supposed to be abolished. So that's how the pay even got into the prison system. And you can find that on a documentary on the History Channel. It's called the U.S. prison system, in the United States. And they petitioned and got the pays in, start getting 5 cents for an hour, little stuff like that. And they the ones petitioned. And that's how the pay system even got into the prison system.
And that was on the federal level and not the state level, right?
Exactly.
Thank you, brother. That was well educating our audience on how slavery was still going on, but they knew it. But it was ways that they put it in writing, and that's what they do. And I want to speak on, and then I'm gonna let you go, brother Hawkins. But I want to speak on this. That cheap prison labor is a powerful labor market incentive against criminal justice reform. I'm gonna say this again because I don't think people understand what we about to go at with this. Right. Cheap prison labor is a powerful labor market incentive against criminal justice reform. Reason why I'm saying this, because we have over 4,100 corporations in the United States of America that profit off of mass incarceration in the United States. Right? These corporations, including private prisons, right, which hold valuable government contracts, featuring minimum bed guarantees at a fixed per prison price. These private and the thing that they put these private prisons, they overstock you in the prisons, and then they say they phone companies. They overprice the commissary. This is all form of this. We ain't just slaving you. We gonna slave your family as well. We gonna pull from them too. From this form of slavery, we gonna make you give money back to your labor. Yeah. Right. So, Brother Charles, speak on why is slavery still existing? And after we didn't had so much didn't transpire in the world, right? But in the Constitution, which is the bylaws of the United States of America, right? Why is it still slavery still exists in the amendments of 13?
Because I think in Dickinson Hill, he set the table right, but you really qualified it by talking about the profit.
Yes,
it's profit. So when we was on the plantation, we was picking cotton. Look at all the money they made off our labor, and we didn't get 1 red cent. So it's a profit mode. That's why they got in the 13th Amendment the exception clause, except duly, and Dixon will say, like, I'm staying around, Rogan Vagabond, except duly convicted, I'm going back on plantation. I'm duly convicted, had black code laws. After slavery, they had black code law. They was going around, just like you said, they was going around, if you walking down the road, say, where you going? I'm going home. Where you live at? Down the road. How far? 2 miles. Oh, that's too far. You trespassing. Why I trespass? You crossed Mr. Johnny's line right here, so therefore I'm gonna duly convict you and put you back in prison. It's the profit motive. And when you spoke about, when you opened up, you talked about how they put, in order for them, like a lot of states put the 13th Amendment in their state constitution. But you spoke on Alabama. Alabama is one of the slave states. But then Alabama prisons just went on strike. The whole entire prison industrial complex in Alabama went on strike. And the reason why they went on strike because of inhumane conditions that they was living under, and the fact that their labor was being exploited. And this is the tragedy in this narrative, is that, you know, right now you have over 1.8 million people that's incarcerated in the prison system. Okay, none of us have no right to self-determination. None of us have no right to, like, we don't have the right to, like, have a social security, like, get paid equal wage. Then you tax us, you take a quarter, we can put that towards our quarter. So when we come out of prison, I've already worked, I've been in prison like 25 years. I got 25 years worth of where I didn't work. That means when I get out, I don't have to worry about getting a job. I can get my social security because I can retire. But you can't retire. Right today, I can't get when I get my quarter from Social Security, I'll be 90 years old because I ain't never had no job. So to answer your question, it's profit.
I'm glad you said that. And one of the things I want to let the audience know, and we know during lockdown at the prison, what was the first place they opened up and tell them go to work?
Unical.
What was the first place?
Unical.
The shops.
The industries. Where everybody else be in they cell. They gonna make sure you go make daddy his money. And I'm saying this because they let me out my cell and I ain't saying this is another bad, but this is true, Bill. Them industries, the prison could be deadlocked. The industry is going to be open to be working because they got contracts that need to be done and need to be pushed out. I'm saying this because I heard. And then there's some of the names. Do y'all remember some of the names? The foreman. And you remember some of the names that the people that was the COs that was working there? Yeah. So, but I want to know.
Overseers.
I want to ask you this, Mike. Did you know there was, and I want you to explain to them and get into depth about this, when I asked you about the 8 states, and I want you to tell them the 8 states that ban all forms of slavery, and tell them the good thing about the 8 states, but and educate the audience about their states that still have the form of slavery, that didn't ban it, that it still goes on if they don't live in these states. Yes.
You see where it says Alabama, Tennessee, Oregon, Vermont, and Louisiana?
Yes, sir. And also Rhode Island. And Rhode Island was the first state to abolish all forms of slavery. So that's the 8th state. And Brother Dixon Neal just told y'all about the 7 states, and he wanted to explain to you what's going on to the people, why it's so important for us to go out and know the law and for us to vote and understand what is being put up in front of us to telling us to vote against and what is not. Because this is not, once again, I say this is not no prisons rights. And this is not just a prison right. This is a human issues rights. Because we are all humans and all of us could be subject to this law and to this constitution, brother. Can you speak on it, please?
Well, I these things, it's kept a secret for a reason. Like Brother Charles was saying about, the ignorance of the law, things of that nature. It's a form of U.S. economy. So therefore, this thing has become a part of U.S. economy. Like Chuck said, is what is 1.8 million people incarcerated. We have the most people incarcerated of any country in the world. At one time, it was Russia. Now we done passed Russia.
That's right.
So therefore, you know, if this your cash cow, you know, why would you inform people? You know, that's why they have things in small print. You know, what's going to get voted on, what can you know, vote against, and things of that nature. They're not going to explain that because of the fact, like Charles was saying, it's too much money being involved. Yep. You have too many people. You got athletes, you got movie stars, you got a whole bunch of people that's investing their money into private industry prisons. So this field is open to be a slave holder. You got a lot of people that's slave holders that got the same complexion that we have. So therefore, you know, once they didn't open up the doorways, though, you can actually invest into prisons. That's right. You know, that's like, you know what I'm saying? That's just like Wall Street saying, hey, we gonna shut down. You know, it won't be done until, you know, everybody really understand that this is not just for us. Because like the article said, this applies to all citizens. So therefore, whether you know, whatever complexion you are, whatever nationality you are, it applies to you. And then once that be explained that it applies to you, then that's when everybody can come together and say, look, yeah, this is something that we need to abolish, because it's a difference between the 13th Amendment and crime and punishment. And that's what should be separated.
That's right.
Thank you, brother. And in closing, I just want to talk to the people out there. In the United States, there's a form of slavery most Americans are familiar with. It's called chattel slavery, which allows people who are considered legal property to be bought, sold, and owned. Chattel slavery was abolished in 1865 when the 13th Amendment of the United States Constitution was ratified. But the text of the 13th Amendment contains an exceptional clause that reads, neither slavery nor involuntary servitude except as a punishment for crime whereof the party shall have been duly convicted, shall exist within the United States or any place subject to their jurisdiction. The 13th Amendment is the amendment that is celebrated for having abolished slavery. However, what most people don't know is that within the 13th Amendment, there's a short exception clause that says, except as criminal punishment. This exception means if a person has been convicted of a crime in the United States, they can still legally be enslaved when incarcerated. We here on Solutions from the Yard, we speak about serious issues that not only affected us, but we know that still affect many of our brothers and sisters that still living inside these walls, and those that's coming home from these walls and that's experienced this form of slavery. This is something that needs to be spoken up and yelled across, because once again, like Brother Dixon L. said, it's only 8 states that abolish all forms of slavery, people. So do the math. There's 50 states. We out.
You've been listening to Solutions from the Yard. This podcast is presented by Voices for a Second Chance, a comprehensive reentry program that provides culturally appropriate, trauma-informed, gender-specific, and peer-based services. For more information, go to info@vscdc.org or visit our website at www.vscdc.org.